Everyone good?
Good to go.
Sweet. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to my podcast. Today, I have Andrew Phong as well as Johnny Nguyen. Both people are NCP mobility scholars, as well as people are really involved in the Asian Australian community. And today, we're just going to be speaking about all these issues and getting their thoughts and hopefully dive into some interesting topics and conversation. So, welcome, everyone.
Glad to be here, Andrew.
Yeah, so Johnny and Andrew, you guys have really interesting stories. I can tell from like your LinkedIn profiles and just meeting you guys briefly last year at the pre-departure training workshop for NTV. So yeah, maybe Andrew, could you start with like a little quick introduction and what your journey and experiences have been at university?
Yeah, sure. So I graduated university last year with a Bachelor of Business, but I went into uni as a mature age student in 2015. Shows a bit of my age there, and but you guys have done amazing, I think, for your age. Anyway, I think
generation gap.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, Western Sydney University was great. I was very lucky to have travelled 8 times, and I think Johnny, very similar, if not 8, maybe 9. I think you've done quite a bit yourself. I travelled with Johnny actually in 2016, I think, to China. With this program.
And then 2017 to Vietnam as well.
Oh yeah, so 2017 in Vietnam as well. We've been together on a couple of trips.
Yeah,
and I guess Johnny will touch on a bit of that as well, maybe in the stuff he says. But yeah, along with that, I've done a little bit of internships here and there in Vietnam, most notably with Austrade. That was very nice. But yeah, now I'm working with the university as a program officer, looking at operations and online development programs for academy students. And for those of your audience, Andrew, who don't know what the academy is about, they're a department that caters to high achieving students at Western Sydney University. So yeah, that's kept me busy during COVID-19 quarantine. So yeah, but it's great to have you have this opportunity to speak with you on the podcast. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. And yeah, Johnny, I believe you're also at Western Sydney and you guys know each other prior. That's why I also had you both on the podcast, just to get a little bit of rapport going on and just bounce things off with each other. But yeah, do you want to introduce yourself, Johnny?
Yes, I've known Andrew for a while. We go way back, I think end of 2015 actually. So I'm also at Western Sydney. I study a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Law. I'm on the cusp of graduating, almost there, can see the light. And I've spent the last 6 years, as Andrew sort of mentioned, similarly gathering international experiences. So I've done a couple of competitions overseas. I've done attended conferences, and probably my most proud achievements are probably the international internships I've been able to do abroad. So I've worked in Cambodia, Singapore, India, etc. And to me, these experiences have been the most formative for my professional career. And currently, I've recently just finished a seasonal clerkship, or, the legal version of internships at a commercial law firm called Asher. And Andrew, thanks again for having both me and Andrew. It's really an honor to be here.
It's an honor. It's an honor to have you guys both on here. Maybe in the future, you guys will be amazing. You will be doing amazing things. So we can hopefully look back on this and see where we're at right now in 2020, and maybe in 5 years' time we can just really watch this and have a laugh of like how we were back then. I think it's always interesting to like see photos of us in the past. Can you just imagine just seeing videos of us maybe doing
what a bit of
yeah, exactly. Because you two have been going on a lot of international experiences, and it sounds like a lot of that has been quite fulfilling and valuable, not only to your professional career, like Johnny said, but also to your personal development and just how you think. Was there any sort of experiences that both of you shared or both of you individually went on that really stood out in your university careers?
I think I'll take the lead on this, but it's a bit cliche, but it would have to be my very first experience. And when I did go abroad for the first time, I went to Cambodia and I did something quite left field. I worked in community development and I helped increase financial literacy in rural regions of Cambodia for populations that had been quite ostracized for a while. So I was introducing basic concepts such as literal using currency, trade systems, opening bank accounts, etc. And for me, it wasn't so much the technical aspects of that internship that really were valuable for me and that I carried on. I think the two things that I found most valuable were, firstly, the fact that going to Cambodia opened my eyes to the possibility that there were other cultures out there. It really broadened my horizon. I know we spoke really briefly about being in bubbles in Australia, and even though we are a melting pot of cultures, to a large extent, we still share some form of common identity, which ultimately makes the rest of the world a little foreign to us without us realizing. So to me, it's a really simple lesson and an obvious one if you say aloud now, but going abroad made me realize that people could be different and that they thought differently. And having that awareness has really helped me be alert to that sort of thing now on. Even though I might not be an expert in any sort of culture, I'm aware that people can be different. And I think the second thing is quite cliche as well, but it simply increased my confidence. I was out of my comfort zone, and I realized that I didn't necessarily think immediately. I was actually doing things, and I knew how to get around. I wasn't going to die. And that was something really formative for me, having that confidence boost early on to know who I was and know that I could achieve things.
Wow. I think that's great, and probably in a very similar vein, but more personal development. With all the internships that I've been involved in, there was a lot of professional growth. But then I found what was really most impactful for me was the personal development when you're in country in a foreign land, so to speak. And you're kind of like, because for me at home, I'm very fortunate. I have a lovely mother who looks after me, and I'm like a prince at home, so I never touch anything. So when I have to do my own washing, I have to go and I'm like, I smell, and it's like, what do I do? How do I get food? And if you can't speak the local language, it gets quite difficult. And interesting at times. But yeah, so I thought, I think if reflecting back now on my experiences, professional development, like Johnny said, confidence-wise, after you develop that level of confidence where you're saying, hey, I can do things for myself, professionally, it translates directly over. And then from there, you can go to your managers. Let's say, for instance, my time at Austrade, even though it was in Vietnam, and I can speak Vietnamese, and I know you guys can too. So the thing is, I woke up really late one day. I'm not gonna lie. I woke up really late, and I was like, "Oh crap!" Like it's like, I think it's like my second day, and I'm like, "Oh,
my gosh!"
No.
And then I think it was like 9:30 a.m. And I think the traffic so I was living in District 7, in Ho Chi Minh City, and to get to District 1, I think approximately it took me like 40 minutes. But it's just pure traffic. By bike.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's crazy, right? I'm like, mate, like I was telling the guy when I was over there, do you know Grab? How you can,
yeah.
I was like, mate, just go, just go, just go. But yeah, I think these little experiences. Initially, because I was staying with my cousin, and we were just like, I arrived in country a month earlier, and we were just kind of taking it easy. Washing was everywhere. I couldn't find my shirt, and I was like, mate, it really touched home. And I thought, I'm so lucky in Australia. But then, afterwards, I got into the routine again, and I thought, overseas travel really sets you up to be, almost an adult. Besides, the fact that there's two sides of the coin actually, because yes, I love staying at home with mum, but then again, it gives you that freedom to kind of do whatever the hell you want to do, and kind of explore your, I guess, personality and what you like and don't like. And I think we have our own stories and of what we've done and how we've gained from that. But personal development, I found that to be very big for me.
That's really interesting because it touches on an article that I read recently on the Harvard Business Review, and they actually undertook a study, and they found that one of the really big things that changes for people who go abroad is that they get to develop their sense of self. To really summarize what was quite heavy research, they basically boiled it down to the fact that when you go overseas, you don't have expectations of who you need to be anymore, and therefore you're able to discover yourself, very similarly to what you said. So, really fantastic point.
Yeah, no.
What about you there, Andrew T? I'm keen to hear from Andrew T, right, our host. I know you've been to the UK, Hong Kong, Indonesia, etc. So what have you learned, and what have you found valuable?
It's really interesting that you brought up that case study because, well, then there's a bit of truth then to people going to Europe and taking photos in front of the Eiffel Tower and saying that, oh, they found themselves after they took the photo or Instagram post, right? I think, yeah, it does definitely bring up a point that I think also in Asian cultures, the the transition of like adulthood is very much blurred because we're very much expected to stay at home and not really forced to move out when we turn 18 or 21. So then, well, for me at least, I'm not possibly for both of you, but when I was traveling overseas for an extended amount of time by myself, that's when I really felt like I was an adult because I had to take a lot of responsibility, planning my trips, doing all the chores, taking care of myself, literally. And that was like, in a way, for me, moving out, in a way. And that's where I found myself and found my sense of self. But yes, and that's why I think it's so addictive for me, just to travel overseas. I think, of course, obviously in the future, I'll be moving out and like having my own family. But yeah, I think right now, when I was in university, that's what was my taster of like how I could actually, what life could be living by myself. But yeah.
Cooking 3 meals a day for yourself. That's the rough part for me.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed cooking, but I think like because if you were overseas, I think maybe cooking for yourself is like a good skill to have, but then it's also a good excuse to also go out and try different cuisines. Like in India or like in Vietnam, like 2 steps down and you've got stores just like end of like amazing food to choose from.
That's true. Yeah.
That's another big benefit of travel, having lots of good food.
Yeah. Yeah. And also for me, my first trip was also the most impactful. I went to Jakarta, Indonesia for also an internship. And there was a lot of firsts in that trip. So first time in Indonesia, first time experiencing an earthquake. That happened there as well.
Wow.
So we didn't get the lowdown or like any sort of briefing. So when it happened, I was just like crapping myself. I was on like the 30th floor-ish, and then we all ran down the stairs. Yeah, that's a story and a half, if I ever have one. But yeah, Indonesia really opened my eyes because I couldn't speak the language. I didn't have like the food apart from like mie goreng and the mie goreng packets. That's what my impression of Indonesian food was. But yeah, it just opened my eyes to just so many new ways of doing things, not just in the office, but also outside of my own life. And so, yeah, and I think you guys can both agree, maybe like the people that you meet is really what makes the difference on these experiences as well. I think solo traveling is great just for yourself, but I think what really makes things stand out and very memorable for you is the people that you meet along the way. And both of you guys traveling together, I think that's just a prime example.
Yeah, I definitely do think the friendships, the relationships you do get from travel, can you hear the plane in the background?
Nah. A little bit actually.
Yeah. Anyway, Zoom. Right? Anyway, it's so I think friendships and relationships from overseas, that's so valuable with travel. And I think you guys are very much can relate to this because I've got friends that I think Johnny, we went over to China in 2016, and a lot of the guys there and girls I still keep in touch with, and I'm assuming you do as well. And that's like 4 years, and I think once we might not be able to talk much like every day, but once we do, it clicks, right? And that's so
100%.
These friendships are amazing, and you can know you'll be able to rely on them, and vice versa. So yeah, lifelong friendships, it's great.
For sure. And I mean, strategically, I mean, I love WeChat and I love chatting to the guys and girls in China. And I was planning on visiting next year, fingers crossed at this point. But I had a chat with all of them about like potential ideas for what I was going to be doing. And, we clicked again, like all the time, catching up with what they're doing, where they're working. And from, I guess, like a really professional networking point of view, it's really handy to have these people that you didn't meet while you were at university, and they eventually get into their own sphere. They're working in their own area, and you've got a contact who does specialize in a certain thing that you probably don't. So it's highly useful just from a professional standpoint as well, beyond personal development, your personal goals.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, both of you guys are really connected, and a lot of people know of both of you. And I guess just for my personal benefit as well, how have you guys, how do you guys feel about the word networking and like that sort of aspect of things? I think sometimes it can, at times for me, it felt really artificial, like just going to a networking event and just trying to put yourself out there. But other times it really clicked and you meet someone or just a couple people that you still keep in touch with. Networking is such a powerful tool that is, I feel, quite underutilized in Australia because everyone's, I guess, doesn't look at it from that way, not just from academic, like people that you can go study with, but also professionally. Like when you go out, you're going to be competing against thousands of people. What really makes you stand out is the people that you know. And that's a really big thing in Asia because the relationships are so key and important. And you're really as influential and as powerful in a way, based on the people that you know. So did you both have any sort of thoughts on that, or from your own experiences?
I think the issue with, I suppose, networking from our position as university students is often twofold, right? I think the initial barrier we will always run into is that we struggle to think about how we can contribute to the relationship because we're so early on in our career. And while that's, I suppose, like on the face of it, somewhat true because we haven't had significant professional experience, the initial thing I think is that we often underestimate how much we can contribute simply by sharing our thoughts. A lot of the time when you're networking with more senior members of your industry and your profession, you underestimate how much value you can contribute simply by giving a fresh perspective. They've been in the industry for 30 years. Sometimes it just takes someone that doesn't know anything to be like, oh, but why do you do this? And that gives them some fresh perspective.
It's true.
But the second thing I think we really then struggle with is this perception of what networking actually means. A lot of people think that networking is sort of like, boozing and schmoozing and you get an immediate benefit somehow. Like, you go to an event and you ask for a job, you got a job that day. But to me, I think networking, obviously you can sort of separate it into like the two different tiers of it. Or tiers is the wrong word, but two levels of it. There's obviously the physical act of attending events and meeting people, which is uncomfortable for people because we simply, meeting a bunch of people you don't know, I'd say like anyone's uncomfortable in that. Look at like the first day of class at university, like it's pretty awkward either way, right? But I think the longer term game for networking is what we really need to be focusing on, right? It's the cultivating and the slow building of that relationship. It's not the idea that you go in on day one, you're like, hi, my name's Johnny, give me a job. But it's the idea that you keep in touch over months. And I think that's what people struggle with, right? Like this idea that networking doesn't pay off immediately. Networking doesn't immediately give you a job. Networking doesn't immediately give you anything. But it's over time that those opportunities come up. And if you keep that relationship alive, you're at the top of mind for someone who then has an opportunity to work with you or vice versa. So it's this idea that we need to look at networking as a longer term investment rather than something that you're trying to get an immediate result from. But I mean, keen to hear from Andrew P, because Andrew P is a serial networker. He's one of the most influential people I know.
No, you're very kind, Johnny, and Andrew as well. You guys are very kind in the phrase because I think networking is king. If not anything else, because like you guys have touched on, it's who you know sometimes. It's how to make you stand out. But I initially thought networking was a bit daunting. And I was at one point very bad at it. I would sweat and I'll start stuttering and I was like, oh crap, so I think for me, realizing after a while, it's strategic, right? You go in there, almost for me personally, I can only speak from my personal experiences that I can either completely be in the mood for networking and I'll just go guns blazing, or be like really like not in the mood, but then I'll have to force it, right? And it kind of gets a bit mundane a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's still the same strategic goal of getting a mutually beneficial relationship going. And I think that's something I really want to highlight on. It's not a one-way relationship, and sometimes students that I've spoken to anyway, they do think that, oh hey, networking, I'm going to get something from this person and that'll be great, right? And they never really consider what they can give to them. And I guess it goes hand in hand, right? I think when you can offer something of value to somebody, whether they're senior or a peer of yours, goes a long way. And that regular contact with that professional or that person, which Johnny touched upon, is crucial. I mean, if you find an opportunity, you know something a bit about them when you're networking with them, you keep that at the back of your mind, and then let's say you come across an article, flick it to them, say, hey, I thought about you, without being too creepy.
One of Andrew's techniques right there.
Signature move. To chime in there, actually, that's a really good point to touch on, and I think it translates into a really good practical benefit if, while you're networking, you make the habit of trying to find out what people's interests are. That's, we often make the mistake of just using small talk or talking about something, that we can't then talk about later. Like, oh, how are you going? How's, whatever going? What work do you do? But if we find out people's interests, it allows us then to do what Andrew does, like to send an article in an area of their interest. And a very good practical tip from Andrew right there.
It goes a long way, and I think I'm sure you guys have your own tips as well. But yeah, it's networking is key to answer your question, Andrew. It's it's probably networking is probably God, really. But yeah, no, it's benefited me. It's benefited me really well, so I can definitely attest to that. Yeah,
You, John?
Well, I'm just keen to hear. Like, Andrew is a phenomenal networker, and do you have any stories of, good examples of, you using these sorts of things and these sorts of tips and how it's benefited you?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Trying to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think you guys have probably went through similar cases and scenarios, but if I had to pick up one, it's one of my mentors, right? I mean, so to give a bit of context, the academy, Johnny, I don't know if you were involved in this, the Go West mentoring program.
I wasn't involved personally, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so the Daily Telegraph initiated this mentoring scholarship, right? It was for students from the academy at Western Sydney University, and then TAFE students as well. I was lucky to apply, and then I was told that, oh, hey, Andrew, you're going to speak in front of these people. And I'm like, oh, crap, like, what am I going to say? I realized that it was going to be the Premier, PM, and all these people.
Wow.
I think 2017.
Big oof.
And then, yeah, I crapped myself, literally. I think I was sweating between my but I was so sweaty. But then it was nice. And then afterwards, these people came up to me, like all these senior people, these old people. I'm like, mate, who are you? I don't know who you are, but I know you're important, so nice to meet you. So there was one person in particular. She came up to me and she's like, Andrew, like, well done. I'm like, at that point, I'm not gonna lie, and this is the first time I'm saying it anywhere on a public kind of like forum, and it's like I didn't know who she was. No, I didn't. So Lucy Turnbull, she's amazing. Well, I actually didn't know who she was at the time. Wow. I knew she looked very familiar. I was like, okay, she's very important. I've seen her somewhere before, but I didn't know who she was. But then even with that fact, I had to stay in my mind. I'm like, mate, just talk to her a little bit and say what you got to say. And so afterwards, I realized that I received her as a mentor. So apparently during our conversation, it was a bit what I said apparently went along well. I don't know what it was, but I think one takeaway point from that is that regardless whoever you talk to within a networking setting, treat them with respect and don't just kind of diss them or kind of like just say, oh, nah, this person's like, irrelevant. I'm not going to talk to them. I think whenever someone gives you eye contact, kind of just return the eye contact as well. I think make them feel welcome. A rule of thumb for me, and I think you guys very much adopt this, is that you want to treat other people the way you want to be treated yourself. So I realized when I was initially networking, when I first started off, I was sweating, man, and I was stuttering. I was like, I was that vulnerable boy in the corner. So when I see someone look at me, I try to make them feel welcome. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, Johnny, but yeah, that's one of the first things that comes to mind. Lucy Turnbull came up to me, and I didn't know who she was. But then afterwards, it turned out to be quite well.
I think that's really fantastic, because if you look at really traditional advice that's available, say, on the internet, like the first thing people say about networking often is, do your research, figure out who the speakers are, and then, figure out what you want from them, etc., which I think is a handy tip in terms of making the most of your evening, especially if, you don't know what's going on. But the converse is also quite true, right? You want to strike that balance between obviously being intentional about what you're doing, but also not being a snob, right? Not being like, oh, well, you're not part of the speaker list. I don't know who you are. I'm not going to talk to you. So it's that balance, right? It's knowing obviously that you're going to certain events for certain people, but at the same time also just being welcoming and friendly to everyone, and having that conversation to people that do come up and make eye contact with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good point, Johnny. Yeah, I think with also a very underrated networking opportunities, people in your classroom at university and the people at uni themselves. I guess Andrew's very lucky because he's made the connection with people in high ranks. But even if you do meet the CEO of Google, for example, compared to a dude or a lady who is also in your class in the future, like if you just meet the CEO, but then you don't really click, or you don't really kind of have any conversations with them, that connection isn't going to be as valuable as someone that you spend time with in a whole semester, build a relationship, and in the future they become the CEO of Google, and then you actually know them on a personal side of things. Obviously, we're not as lucky as Andrew P, who actually gets the best of both worlds. But like, I think just understanding like that in the context of university, where you meet so many people that are going to be doing so many amazing things in the future, I think that's just a great way to start off if you're really daunted by networking events. Johnny?
I mean, speaking of underrated opportunities, one that I recommend, younger students really pursue is building relationships with your academics and lecturers at uni. They're often, fountains of knowledge, and they can help you navigate your career, especially if they're often, say for in my law degree, they're often practitioners of law themselves who have networks of their own and can help you along the way while also drawing on you as a resource. So another underrated opportunity there.
Yeah, no, I think you guys have touched on both amazing points, because initially, well, I'm speaking from personal experience. I thought networking, I'm not going to talk to my peers. Like, I know them already, right? These guys in my class, some of them are like, I don't want to talk to them. But then it's true. You're like, it's so valuable. You don't know who in your classroom is going to be the next CEO of, let's say, Apple or Google, or the next prime minister, foreign minister. You never know, right? And it's a very good point, Andrew. And after my first experience, I think at overseas in China, I came back and I'm like, hey, I probably need to talk to more of my peers. I was doing so already, but I wasn't expanding my horizons a little bit. I was kind of still clustered towards more Asian Australians and kind of that kind of stuff. But then academics, Johnny, you touched on an amazing point, because funny you say that, because just 2 days ago or yesterday, one of our academics at Western Sydney, I think you know her, Marion.
Yeah.
So a lecturer from our university who specializes in organizational study. She I think we met her initially through India and stuff like that. So and that's ages ago. But then I've remained quite close to Marion, and she's always been there to kind of give a lending hand, some professional advice here and there. And it goes such a long way. I mean, my current job at the moment, she gave a glowing review reference, and you don't know who they know to academics, right? I realized that her family are heavily connected in the airport and aerotropolis field, urban planning and all that stuff. So senior suite, I think like C-suite executives there. So yeah, it's amazing. You don't know who you bump into, and especially at university, these academics, you're right, Johnny, they've done research, right, and they're known to the industry. So yeah, make the most of it. They're the easiest to kind of get connected with. And it's not hard. People might think you're kiss ass a little bit if you kind of talk to an academic, but do it, man. Like, no one's gonna say anything really. At the end of the day, you'll be winning if you're reaching out and kind of being known. So yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Just listening to all your stories and all the things that both of you have been involved in. You guys are obviously high achievers and really trying to just get after it. Like, just taking a step back, like, when did this, I guess, mindset start for you? Like, is it always just been something that, like, I need to be an AFR future leader, or do I need, or like another person, like with Andrew being involved in just all of these amazing opportunities? Is that something that also has been as a result of like just opportunities just opening up, serendipity, or is it also something that you've all sort of just planned from the start, first year of university, first day, and I'm just gonna like do this, and I'm just going to like take over everything in that way?
I reckon Andrew and I are probably going to have pretty similar answers here in terms of motivation, but to sort of address that little last bit first, I think it's a good idea to have some kind of plans, yet at the same time be flexible and adaptable enough to seize opportunities as they do arise. I think it's pretty impossible to plan out every single detail of your career, university, professional, or otherwise, but it's a good idea to have some kind of plan, yet revise it constantly. But in terms of when it started, I reckon here's where, like, I reckon Andrew and I's answers will be quite similar, but I wasn't a high performer, like, after high school. I finished high school, didn't get the greatest marks, went to uni, once again, like, wasn't the best, but I took a semester off and I did some farm work, actually. I did some pickpacking, I did some manual labor, and it sort of like told me that, you know, I'm quite unfit and I need to exercise more. But more importantly, that I'm probably more of a brain person than a brawn person. I'm very unfit, not going to use this. But the more important thing, I think, is that I developed empathy at some point. And the thing that really drives me, and I think this is probably true for a lot of immigrant populations, is the fact that I sort of eventually understood my parents' sacrifices. They came from Vietnam after the Vietnam War. They left everything behind, and part of their motivation was that their children, their child, me, would have an opportunity to do things, to live in a country where the child would have freedom and opportunity to pursue things and live a better life. And I think it's a concept that we all hear about growing up, but we don't really understand from a really personal level until we sort of mature a bit. Because I think the problem that almost any child experiences is that they hold their parents to a really high standard, because, you know, you see your parents as heroes, and you think, oh, well, you know, they've made sacrifices, but they're great, untouchable people, and that probably hasn't affected them. But you eventually realize, you're like, they did give things up. They gave up everything they knew back in Vietnam. They gave up connections to family members, friends, and community, and they came over here and they struggled in a language they didn't know, which I think we all get a little bit of sympathy and empathy from when we travel overseas, right? Like going to Indonesia, not being able to speak the language, it felt quite disempowering. You felt helpless. And so after they went through those experiences, for me, a really great source of motivation, and one that sort of kicked in probably around like 2015 for me, was that everything I'm doing is built on the back of their sacrifices. And a bit of the pressure I felt was to not let them down, to not let their sacrifices be in vain, and to be true to myself and, you know, really push myself to achieve things.
Yeah, I think Johnny's touched on, I think, a great point, because we don't actually realize how much our parents give up until we really get a little bit older. Yeah, to touch on your point, Andrew, I think when I was growing up, I wanted to be a police officer. I watched all those movies, action movies, and the police guy, the hero, he always calls the hero, right? So I was happy. I mean, I want to be a police officer, I want to be a hero. And I think, similar to Johnny, after high school, I didn't get the greatest of marks, but I got enough to get into university and in an area that I wanted to get into. But then I thought I was battling a couple of things mentally, and I thought it was a bit much. So I would just step back a bit, take a couple of years off. I went into personal training. I did that for a couple of years. And like Johnny, I realized, mate, like, I can't do any of this physical crap. It's too much. It's too much. Not only am I unfit, but I'm like, I can't wake up early. Like, too early. They wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and like they're doing all this stuff. It's too much. So, and I think So we talk about NCP, right? We talk about New Colombo Plan and the rite of passage. And I thought maybe not only are my international experiences rite of passages, but also this kind of like experience with personal training was kind of like a rite of passage for me, because looking at it at the time, I thought it was so crap because I had an employer, so I worked at this gym, and it worked under like this employment system, as opposed to paying rent. Like as some of you know, you pay rent if you're a personal trainer, and you're kind of like your own boss there. But here it's kind of like you're getting a stipend, a salary, right? Working at the gym. And this guy, I joined after graduating as a personal trainer, and he was he wasn't paying me my wages, and I was waking up and all. And do you know when you start your first job, you always want to give extra, you want to kind of make a name for yourself, and it killed me, it crushed me. So, during that personal training experience, like you gain so much in terms of networking as well. There's communication skills and how to relate to people. You hear voice from your clients. So from there, that intrinsic motivation, that drive that I had as a child, always wanted to reach the top. And at one point in Cabramatta High School, I had a mentoring experience with my year 12 business class. So the head teacher in my faculty then, she had a contact at Commonwealth Bank, and then she managed to develop this thing called the Commonwealth Bank Partner Class program. So we had Commonwealth Bank, like employees come over, executives come and talk to us. And then as a child, flashy things, money, and then all this stuff. I was like, mate, I want to be the CEO of Commonwealth Bank, right? This is amazing. But then, afterwards, I don't think so. In recent looking at what's happening on the new. Just these experiences. I think failure, when you hit something that's that you don't expect, it hits you in the face. I think you develop resilience, drive, and you want to make the most of it, because I think our parents, we might share this in commons, because I know my mom anyway, she'll say in Vietnamese, if you don't mind me saying Andrew in Vietnamese, she's like, con gắng học đi, đừng có làm cu ly mệt lắm, gắng học đi. Translation to like English is like, just study, study hard. Don't be a manual laborer. It's hard work. So, and I think that's common across a lot of Asian I think communities, families anyway. So whenever I think about this, I just try to do my best. And at first year university, I really put my hand up and did a lot of things. So, yeah.
No, it's really interesting to hear from both of your perspectives and how you started. Well, the common trend is manual labor is in either in the gym or in the farm is not the way to go. Yeah.
Get to the gym, kids. It will teach you something.
Yeah, it will. Yeah. For me, I think my journey was a little bit more, the realization was similar, but the path was a bit different. I wish I actually took a bit of time off after high school, or maybe just take a semester off like you did, or like you, Andrew. My first experience at university wasn't great. My first year, I had to learn a lot of things. One of those things was learning how to actually study and like be in that system. Actually, full disclosure, no one really knows about this, but I failed a whole semesters of units that one time, first year. And then I think that was like my rite of passage. Like, okay, not the manual labor or anything, but that was like when I realized, like, all right, I actually need to change and really do something for me. Because even though I really wanted to do well by my mom, ran up, keep studying for her. I think I also needed to balance out what I wanted to do in my interest as well, because I can definitely do what my mom wants me to do, but I can do it my way as well. And if I can do it that way, it might actually result better, because it's like she knows the typical professions that say lawyer, doctor, engineer. Yes, she did quote that. But there was just so many other professions out there, so many opportunities out there that you can take up, and you don't really know unless you step out of the bubble, figuratively, as well as the bubble in Southwest Sydney or in Sydney or in Australia. So for me, it was when I first traveled. That was when I really realized that my motivation is to find something that I actually really am interested in, am really good at, and then combining those two things to actually use that as motivation to then the end goal is, take care of my family, mom, and the rest of my extended relatives, but also the family in the future. So that was for me. A lot of up and downs and a lot of things, a lot of growing pains, but I think everyone has growing pains. Like, I know both of you guys are very high achievers, but the story and how we got there, I think it's much, even sometimes more valuable. The journey that we actually undertake to learn and to reach where we are is sometimes even more valuable than the goal. So very cliche again. So yeah, very true.
I think that touches on an important point, though, when you talk about how you had to step out of your bubble to really discover your passion. And it's an interesting conversation in the sense that I think a lot of people hold, at least young people, right? They hold this misconception that passion's a bit like a lightning bolt. Like, you'll be in the middle of the night and it'll just strike you in the head and you're like, yes, that's what I want to do. But the reality is, right, like, I think for all of us, we've had to do things that we didn't enjoy. We've had to persevere through things we might not be good at. And we've eventually, by taking action, we've discovered the things that we're passionate about and we're good at. And once again, like Andrew, you said, like, I feel like that's a very similar concept to like the Japanese concept of ikigai, right? Where like you're combining things you're good at, you want to do, things the world needs, etc. But we stumble onto those things. We don't magically think about them and manage to get to that conclusion. It's only by doing that we find out what we do like. So, well, like Andrew said, put your hand up for lots of things. Get your foot in the door for lots of different things and do different things to actually get to what you're passionate about.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important. That's why I guess employers look at your CV, right, when you graduate, and they look at your extracurricular. What have you done? And I think that's a direct reflection of kind of your personal and professional growth.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing our journeys. I think even though we've just finished university or almost finishing university, to look back and kind of say, it's been a good ride. And I think especially with NCP as well, they're supporting us. Will definitely set us off for a long and successful career, I hope. I'm sure it will. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice knowing that NCP is there to support us, and we're still in this generation anyway. To be born in this generation, I think.
For sure.
Because we could be born in any other generation in the previous ones, and I don't know how I'll cope. So yeah, no, it's amazing.
I reckon that's an underrated point. And I think that's something that I think both you and I can really relate to, Andrew P, because I think one really important thing about NCP for me was that it was probably one of the first instances where someone external to me expressed confidence in my ability and my worth as a person, right? Even though it's very minor at times to think about, scholarship, sponsorship, etc. But I think that a lot of our successes have come as a result of that increased confidence, right? Like, once you do get something once, you're more likely to do it again. I started applying for different programs. I started applying for different internships because I had slightly more confidence that someone believed in me. And I think, like you, right? Like, this idea of, like, say, the Go West mentorship, this idea that someone like Lucy Turnbull had faith in you, was mentoring you, and all the other experiences you've had. Like, I can't even name all of them. Like, being at Austrade, all the things you do, I feel like they're sort of built upon each other, right? Like, as you get these experiences, you become more confident in your own self-worth. And that's, I think, something that people need to understand. Just that their self-worth, like, going back, I would have liked to know that my self-worth isn't tied to those things. But it should, I think the normal course that most people take is to simply apply to those things, eventually get one, and then build off of them and, achieve more because you've been given opportunities.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a bit like riding a bike, right? I mean, once you start riding a bike and you're falling down a couple of times, you're like, hey, it's easy. I'll just keep going fast, right? And it's good. But yeah, I think I lost my point. What I was going to say. I was like, mate, I'm just riding a bike.
I'm really surprised it took this long for one of us to do that, because I'm like, this usually happens a lot more often in these sorts of things. Like, I've got a really good point. I've forgotten it.
Yeah, but to touch on your point, Johnny, it's like I've lost it, man.
Mate, I love how he gave it a second go. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back on this.
I've almost got
It's
it.
not there.
Oh yes, I've got it. I've got it.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. So, now, Johnny, I think that's a very good point, and I think it's great to have that confidence to always, apply and put your hand up for things after having positive experiences in doing so. But then again, I think the key is to balance, have a very good balancing mechanism. I think mentally anyway, knowing that don't get overconfident is what I realized, because full disclosure as well. This one time when I was in China 2 years ago, I was in this internship, right? And it was a global development internship, kind of like business development, for this very small Pakistani Chinese company. And they were doing a lot of trade deals between the two governments. I think they were facilitating it. It was small in terms of size, but then influential, and then very influential and impactful in terms of politically and all that crap. But then, yeah, so I thought, oh mate, this is going to be amazing. I'll be able to contribute so much, and I was very confident, right? So I got in, and then immediately he's like, Andrew, your CV, everything looks amazing. I'll give you this work to do. I'm like, easy, man. I got in, and then I'm like, oh mate, what the hell is this? Like, I don't know, I don't know anything. So it's I think the bubble the university kind of like inflates you with. It's like, because at uni, student leaders, you kind of like put in a store, and you attend events, you get awards or whatever. It's great to, I think it recognizes your potential and your capability, but then it doesn't necessarily say that, mate, you know what to do, or you're good at whatever it is. It does in a certain degree, but then again, we're students. So one thing, I think, well, no longer full disclosure, but then one thing is like, I was confident, right? I was overconfident at one point, and I think that's something I won't be doing anymore. I think got to be more humble in terms of the work I do, and yeah, I never shared that anywhere before, so exclusive to you.
Exclusive,
Andrew.
yes.
Oh mate, exclusive. I think that touches on a related point though, in terms of this whole idea of confidence, right? And I'm hoping, Andrew T, you would have seen a video I made recently about this, but it's this idea that students should be applying to work as students. And, this is a very side topic about careers here, but
no, go for it.
I like to think that from the traditional advice I've gotten, a lot of the professional advice you get about work is, sell your worth, tell them how valuable you are and what you can contribute to their organization. And I think that makes a lot of sense for mid-career professionals who've got significant experience, right? Like, they've got portfolios that they can point towards and go, I did this for X company and I can do this for you. But as students, I think we have that tendency to try and replicate that and try and inflate our experiences. Oh yeah, I was responsible for all of this and I can do all of this. When, I know I sat down in front of like partners at law firms who've been working in the area for 30 years. And eventually I realized that what I was saying probably wasn't sticking. I probably wasn't seeming the most impressive trying to convince an employment law partner I knew about employment law. So I realized the best way to go about it is to really highlight what Andrew P said, your potential as university students. You come out with potential, but you don't necessarily come out as experts. So with that in mind, you should really be embracing that in literally all that you do, not just jobs, right? Like, everything that you do, you should really be embracing how much you can learn from it, how much you can realize your potential, rather than trying to come in and be like, I'm an expert. And, Andrew P, I can confirm that I've had similar experiences where I've come in and I'm like, I definitely know this. And then I immediately fall down. I'm like, nope, don't actually know anything. I am useless, sorry. And the thing is, though, that's a very difficult conversation to have, especially when, we have this pressure to present the most impressive side of our job. Straight after a job interview, you've probably been telling them how great you are, and now you're coming in, you're like, I don't know the first thing about this, please help me. But you eventually realize that that's better than pretending that you know it and then completely messing it up and having them find out like a month later that you've been doing nothing. So it's an uncomfortable area to deal with, but it's probably marginally better than just messing it up for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think so too. You got to ask the hard questions, man, and it makes you uncomfortable, but you're doing the right thing. You don't want to stuff up. So I think a senior person that always well, at the end of the day, if you're working for a company, they don't want you to screw up. So always voicing that you need help. That even though they're busy, they'll find a way to, I think, help, and it reflects a lot better. Yeah.
And I think NCP has probably been a decent build up to learning about that sort of thing, because when you do go to a whole new country, you're in, like for me, I was in India, like everything I thought I knew about, probably everything had been chucked out the window, right? Like common greetings, etiquette, like even the most basic things. I remember at some point asking my manager if the email that I drafted up, like scheduling a meeting, was okay, and it actually wasn't. Like I needed to use proper salutations for like the senior members of the firm. So, you know, asking those questions, and I think NCP kind of go hand in hand. Like these new experiences teach you that you don't know everything, and that it's okay to be asking even simple questions.
100%. Yeah, I think there was a quote or a video that I watched. It was about striving to become the expert and to understand as much as you can. And then if once you try to, or even remotely come close to reaching that level, still have the mindset of a student. And so that it can help you actually still be humble, but also still be competent in a way. You don't always want to be the student, right? You could, like don't ask me if I'm a 70-year-old student. Like it's going to be hard, but also adopt that mindset as you move along. Yeah, and I guess for me as well, for maybe more so for business students, but I think it's quite hard not to talk yourself up as you compete against thousands and thousands of other applicants who have the same degree as you, have better marks than you, and your experiences outside of university. The scene right now, I think, especially with like the whole global situation, it's a lot more difficult for students now to stand out. It's a lot more difficult for students to really understand how they can really put the best foot forward, because they going into university, getting the degree, I'm going to get a job, but that's like probably like 10% of the whole story. And you really need to do so much other things outside of university to actually not only get a job, but to have and to find everything else about yourself, being a lot more self-aware and what you want to do in the future. So yeah, did you guys have any thoughts on that?
I thought like the first thing that popped to my head when we talked about was the job market and, you know, say business students needing to inflate themselves up. I think a big part of this is probably related to social media as well, right? Because a common thing we know is that, you know, social media is simply someone's highlight reel. But as humans, it's so intrinsically difficult to not compare yourself to them, right? Like, you don't know that, you know, for example, I did an internship at a top tier law firm, and most students go, wow, crazy, you must have great marks or something, right? But like, they don't know that I've been applying for like 3 years for like various internship roles. I've got a spreadsheet full of about, I think, 180 rejections I've gotten along the way. But like, you know, you don't necessarily hear about that. I'm hoping to talk about it more and make that conversation more normal. But, you know, I know for me, right? I've looked at Andrew's LinkedIn and all of them. Sorry, oof, it happens. I look at his profile, right, and I'm thinking, I'm useless. Like, this guy's doing everything, and what am I doing here? I'm getting rejected for another lot of jobs I've applied for. My marks aren't HDs. I'm struggling I'm procrastinating, etc. And we compare ourselves, and we compare often, you know, the worst moments we have when we are, you know, procrastinating, when we're useless and not doing stuff, to people's highlight reels. And I think that's a really big thing when it comes to people then feeling the need to compare themselves to other people's highlight reels in job applications and everything else, right? Like, I look at Andrew and I'm like, fantastic experiences here, there, global experiences everywhere. And on my job interview, I'm like, surely I have to do something similar. I'm like, yeah, I'm a globe trotter. Like, I've done lots of things as well. I'm also an expert, but I think it's such a hard thing to not do, but it's probably better for everyone involved if you admit that you are a student once again, right? Like, I think the reality is that everyone knows what's going on, yet we feel this need to compare ourselves to the highlight reel despite knowing it's not real.
Yeah, I think what Andrew, what you mentioned earlier, when you I think as business students or as any student in general, you you go into a job interview, it's almost fight or flight, right? You're like, mate, these guys are, there's so much competition, and I don't know what to do, so I'm gonna kind of inflate myself a little bit. But then, yeah, and that's, well, to avoid that, I think is kind of like what Johnny was mentioning, is that, well, did you mention? I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Let's say he did.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Johnny, like it's
Piece of shit. As you mentioned, Johnny, and you say it right,
Yeah.
Andrew T will be able to look back and be like, all right, he either did or didn't say it, and then he'll just cut out the as you mentioned if he needs.
So I think yeah, I'll try that again. But yeah, Johnny, as you said, give me a moment. Right. Yeah, no.
If you want me to, I can chime in if you want.
I think no, I've got it. So yeah, Johnny, you're saying social media and comparing people, especially with LinkedIn now, it's quite, I think, more mainstream as I'm starting to realize, and the push for LinkedIn students to be on LinkedIn anyway, especially in our areas of like professional jobs. It's quite something. In my current role at the moment with the academy, there's students that come up and say, "Hey, mate, like I look at your LinkedIn. There's a lot of stuff there, but I don't know what to put in for myself." And I think it's more like some students need education on how to almost promote themselves, but in a humble way.
Yeah.
And what you were saying, Johnny, where you can say that you need to say to employers that you've got that potential and you're willing to learn. I think that's a great fallback when you feel as though you're kind of pushed against a corner, and say, hey, like maybe I don't know what else to say. Kind of a tip to some graduates maybe applying for some roles is that you can just say, I've demonstrated that I've got the ability to learn, and then as a result I've done X, Y, Z. So given the opportunity, I'll be able to continue to add value. So I think the key is to focus on yourself, and I think look at other people as for inspiration, but then not so much, I think, trying to duplicate it or compete with them directly. Otherwise, it's they've done it before you, so it's always going to be a catch-up game unless they completely
Put your own way.
Yeah, do it your own way. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm keen to hear about is, Andrew P, you mentioned students often don't know how to promote themselves, and as a serial LinkedIn expert yourself, I'm keen to hear what tips you have. I'd say, like, my quick tips are probably I think one of the biggest things to add is probably the fact that students need to think about how to document their experiences. A lot of people have done lots of things, yet they don't think to record how they can potentially promote it, right? Like, even say, my early experience in Cambodia, it was a fantastic experience, but that was my first time abroad, and I was worried about staying alive. Rather than say, potentially documenting photos, videos, etc., of things that I could bring back and share. So, I mean, first tip is to document, and the second thing I recommend is to focus on, I suppose, bringing value to the network, right? Because for me personally, when I look at LinkedIn, I'm not particularly impressed by posts that go, look at me, I'm fantastic in this. Like, hey guys, I got an 88 in this unit. Like, it's great, I'm happy for you, but I didn't gain much from it. Whereas, even the same post, look, I got an 88 in this unit, and these are the 3 top things I learned. I still find that that's quite useful. You've now added value. I've gotten a bit of the takeaway from what you've done, and I've read your post and I probably have enjoyed it. But, I'm going to pass to both of you guys because I'm keen to hear on what sort of tips we have for promoting yourself and becoming more visible.
I'll take this, and then Andrew can gather your thoughts as well. For me, I think when we're on LinkedIn, we're in a different mind space, right? If we're on Instagram, I just want to see photos, aesthetically nice photos, or memes, or funny cartoons. But when we're on LinkedIn, I think we are in a mindset of, I guess, trying to learn more or understand more. And I think bringing value, although it is used now very much like as a buzz term, I think it still holds very true. Where if I read your post or if I watch your short video, am I going to not only feel better about myself, but am I also going to be taking something out that I can implement and do in the future? Is it going to be looking at your profile and say, wow, you can actually apply for the NCP scholarship. And that's such a great opportunity to learn about that. And if you do a post promoting that or just speaking about your experiences, I think having other people in mind when you post is such a underrated skill, as opposed to posting for yourself. I think as opposed to on Facebook or Instagram, you're posting for yourself. Just basically.
Definitely.
But if you're posting on LinkedIn, you really have to be very empathetic and self-aware of what you can bring and what you can bring for other people. So I think that's my tip. Just post for other people rather than posting for yourself on LinkedIn, and do it consistently. I think I'm very guilty of not posting consistently. If you do a post every 6 months, like, hard truth, don't even bother. I think if you post at least a little bit more consistently, just to get your name out there, just to build a routine, and just to keep that in mind, building your skills, like just like learning a language. If you don't do it consistently enough, you're not going to be able to really master it. And that's just what I've been able to sort of gather from my brief LinkedIn experience. But what about you, Andrew P?
Yeah, so I think my LinkedIn at the moment, there's so much stuff on it, but it's unorganized. So I need to go back and kind of like update everything and make it look a lot more neat. But there's stuff on there, like I put in, I think in 2015, and I haven't like fixed it. So medically and all that, it might be really off. But I think you touched a really good point, Andrew, because you do need to, on LinkedIn anyway, look at your posts differently, because on social media, Facebook, Snapchat, or whatever, you do your own thing. That's your personal life. LinkedIn, I think, is more in the mindset when I'm looking at LinkedIn. It's kind of like, that's how I am at a workplace. And I want to kind of like portray myself as like how I'll be an employer. So I try my best to kind of like, let's say a lot of my posts would be attending events or I'm reflecting upon something. Whoever I met, I want to include people in. So I'll tag them, and if I've had a brief conversation with somebody, I'll bring them in. But then the whole point, I think, is for my post on LinkedIn is exposure. So I just try to really, really post a lot of different things. Sometimes I think what you're doing at the moment, Johnny, is great with your tutorials and kind of your videos on advice and tips for clerkships and so forth. But the main point is, what I'm trying to say is, I try to really pump up my LinkedIn as kind of like a visible path for other people to look at and say, hey, I can do that too. Kind of like pave the way for other students, because it's guys at my school who I know that have struggled a little bit with their own journey, and then not everybody's as lucky as us where we're granted these opportunities, and some people are not confident, right? So I want to kind of just put out there, having that exposure, and say, hey, I'm just like you, but I'm able to do this, so you can do that as well. So I think in your writing, if you're making it very easy to read, very casual, I realize it gets a lot more engagement, as opposed to if you're trying to act all smart and then you just look stupid, right? So, yeah, that's my take, and I think that's kind of like my gist around LinkedIn and my approach. But yeah, I think everyone has their own style. Hopefully, your viewers get a bit of value out of what we're kind of sharing today. But yeah, I think LinkedIn is a powerful tool.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, I think even though we all think we know how to do LinkedIn, we still have so much to learn, and it's the same with everyone watching. I think there's always room for improvement. I think it's like your LinkedIn profile is there, but I've been able to change my profile over the years, just like my resume. You build on what you've got. So I think, yeah, thank you so much for both of you with all that advice. And I think just to end on that note, I think maybe just to, I guess, give a little bit of an example or a way to finish off. Yeah, what do you guys, let me say, since we're all Vietnamese here, what is your favorite Vietnamese dish? And looking back now, what have you experienced in your life that was very Vietnamese, but you didn't realize and you thought everyone was doing that thing? Either eating a certain dish or doing a certain chore or being told that you were like found in a garbage bin, like that you thought was like quite normal for everyone, but now you realize that is very much a Vietnamese thing. And yeah, Vietnamese dish first though. Johnny, what do you think?
Oh man, he's throwing me under the bus. Like I'm still thinking about the second bit. My favorite dish, though, hands down, no context, is beef pho.
Yeah.
I love pho. I cannot live without pho. And in terms of something very Vietnamese, I'm gonna have to pass the baton around a bit. I'm still thinking about that.
Okay.
Random disclosure, though, I'm on 1% on my phone, so if I do drop out,
no worries. We're gonna finish soon, anyways.
Yeah, so yeah, the second question's a good one, I think. But for the food, I think I always go to this as my go-to, and that's cơm tấm đặc biệt. I love
special combination rice for everyone listening. Yeah,
very much. It's amazing, and this one place I love in Cabramatta, it's Bầu Dường. It's next to.
Oh yeah.
It's got a green kind of
the green place. Yeah.
Right next to Commonwealth Bank. So and one of your viewers that want to go there, it's amazing. I'm not a shareholder or anything, don't worry. I just love it. But yeah, to answer your second question, I think there's so many things that I thought that were Vietnamese, but then that I thought was normal, but then I realized it was Vietnamese. The one thing you mentioned is that you found you in a garbage bin. And I so many different things. I think one would have to be, I think, I don't know.
Bro, that was me as well. I'm like, there are so many things that I should be able to think of right now, but
yeah.
and then Andrew T was like, Johnny, and I'm like, oh no.
For me, I think so many. Running out to my mom or my auntie after going to the grocery store and just carrying all the groceries in. I think that was very much expected, that they would just walk in and I would bring all the groceries in. That's one thing.
That's not normal. What? I'm only discovering this now.
Yeah. What else? Yeah, it's just a lot of things. I think
maybe you guys might be able to kind of tell me whether or not this is Vietnamese or normal or whatever. So there's a strong sense, I think, us being boys, we love our mums. We love our mums, right? So I always spend time. I try to spend time with her, take her out shopping, whatever it is, and just have quality time. Whatever chores she needs, I just try to be there. And I realize not every single person out of my friendship group does that for their mums. And I don't know whether that's normal or not, but or whether or not that's Vietnamese. But I feel like our culture anyway, we have got a strong sense of almost love for our mums, and we want to give back. Maybe just a comment rather than I think that's very Vietnamese, normal kind of thing. But yeah,
surely not just Vietnamese people. Surely not. I love my mom. I reckon all of us here.
Yeah, but good point, Andrew. Good point. There. Yeah. What else?
What about boiling your water before you drink it? I reckon that's at least very Asian.
Yeah.
Very Asian.
I agree.
Do you still boil water?
My mom does. I just drink it. I just drink it out of the tap. But she boils the water every few hours.
The thing is, I found this thing in Costco. Do you guys go to Costco?
Yeah.
Do you know those jugs? I think it's the breeder filters.
Oh yeah.
You have the averages, but it's in a jug, and then they have a filter in the middle, and then you put tap water in and it just filters all the lead and all that out. So I realized I've been using that, and it's been amazing.
Life changing. Give one to Johnny's mom.
All that lead in your normal water.
Oh, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
We should definitely all catch up sometime, though. I think
definitely
because we live all proximately quite close, and I think Johnny, Johnny drives as well, so we can halfway or something. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming on, guys. I think Johnny just cut out, but I think he did. It was 1%. So no. Thanks. Thank you so much for both of you giving up your time to do this. I certainly learned a lot. So I'm sure everyone watching and everyone would definitely. Now that was 2 Johnnies.
Oh wow.
Johnny's just gonna zoom right in. You there, Johnny?
Yeah, my phone just died, so I just connected on my computer, but I don't have a working camera.
All good, dude. All good. Thanks. I was just saying, just to cap off things. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me and having a solid conversation. Like, I want to use this platform just to speak to people that I wouldn't have otherwise really had the chance to. And I think just to explore issues or conversations and experiences that we've all shared in one way or another. And back to the word value, for everyone to watch, to get some value out of it as well. So yeah, I really do appreciate the time. And yeah, hopefully we can catch up in person sometimes.
You know what? Thanks for having us. And yeah, I think this is a great initiative. So good on you, man. If there's anything else, just let us know.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, likewise here. It's been fantastic chatting with you, and also keen to catch up in person at some point. And I'd like to echo Andrew P. This is a fantastic initiative, and I've enjoyed watching some of the other podcast episodes as well.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. So yeah, thanks so much. See you guys.
See ya.
You guys.
You can't see